If you've ever tried to go on holiday and you've either missed a flight or had an issue with a passport or a visa, perhaps you can relate to this story I'm about to share. When I was in my early 20s in Australia, I booked a skiing trip with 3 mates to Queenstown in the South Island of New Zealand. This town is awesome. It's basically a place where you go to do extreme sports. I'm not really an extreme sports kind of guy, but every shop is for like rocket boating through a canyon or bungee jumping or skydiving, which I'll get to. I was so excited for this trip, but when I booked the package, the travel agent ill-advised me. I was a student at the time, living off like 2-minute noodles. I had a British passport and an Australian. My Australian one had expired, so I asked the travel agent if it was okay to use the British, and they were like, no worries. We didn't sleep the night before we flew because we had to be at the airport at 6 a.m. When I got to the check-in, they were like, if you want to get into New Zealand on a British passport, you need a visa. They said, you've got 2 options. And I'm like, great. What's the first option? The first option is you can give us a valid Australian passport. I was like, I don't have one. What's the second option? The second option is you can fly to Britain, get a visa for New Zealand, and then fly to New Zealand from Britain. I was like, why the heck would I fly all the way to the UK to then fly to New Zealand? At that point, I thought all hope was lost. The response from my 3 mates was pretty classic. The first one was like, I ain't going without ya. The second one was like, you made the mistake, you suffer the consequences, we're off. And the third one was in between. The dude at the checkout said there was a third option. If I got back to the airport the same time the next morning, they'd put me on the same flight. When I farewelled my mates at the gate, they were convinced I was never going to make it. So I left the airport, took a taxi home, jumped in the car and went to the city in Melbourne to the passport office, where they said they could renew my passport in a few hours, and there was a glimmer of hope. At the same time, the parking meter was running out, and in Melbourne, the parking fines are pretty damn expensive. So I run into one of these gambling places that has all the coin machines. I get a handful of change. The adrenaline's pumping. On the way out, I thought, you know what? I'm going to take a pause, and I'm going to play one of these machines. I don't know what I was thinking, really. I put a coin in the machine, it lights up, and I win $50. I'm like, yes, things are looking up. I go outside, I've got a parking ticket for $60. It was time to call the travel agent. When I called them, I was like, guys, I know I should have checked, but if you didn't know, you shouldn't have ill-advised me about the British passport. And they said, we're going to try and get you a direct flight to Queenstown. I got the passport, I barely slept that night, and I went back to the airport the next morning with a valid Australian passport, got on the flight, got to Christchurch, took one of these little propeller planes to Queenstown. When I arrived, the mates had just done one morning skiing, and when they saw me in the hotel, they couldn't believe their eyes. They were dumbfounded. They were like, you've done the impossible. We don't know how you made it. And we went and celebrated as young blokes do by drinking far too many bourbon and cokes in a local club. Not only while my poor mates were having to drive 6 hours, I was flying over in a plane because I missed a day's skiing, got a voucher to go skydiving. I'd never gone skydiving. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but I thought, why not? So the next day, I think I'm still drunk from the night before. We do the morning skiing and then we go to the skydive place in the afternoon. There's 3 Canadians there who I'm going to go up in the plane with who have paid extra money to go from higher. When I asked the instructors what that meant, they said that jumping from 10,000 feet extended the free fall time, that I would go up in the plane, they'd jump out, and then they'd take me lower and I'd jump out. And I'm like, well, I ain't having that, so I'll pay extra to go from 10,000 feet as well. The plane literally like zigzagged straight up to 10,000 feet. And the guy who was strapped to my back, he said, I'm going to hang you outside the plane for a bit, and then I'm going to tap you on the shoulder and we're going to fall out. I felt like I was hanging outside that plane for about 10 minutes. When we finally tumbled out of the plane, it wasn't like I'd seen on TV. It wasn't like floating and waving and smiling. The weird thing was, as I was plummeting toward the earth, the only thing I could think about was the fact I had laceless trainers on. And I thought one of them was going to pop off and some sheep in a paddock somewhere was going to get killed by a random shoe falling from the sky. When the parachute finally opened, all the noise and the wind and my stomach churning, it all stopped and it became very peaceful. It was so stunning down below with all the ski mountains where they filmed Lord of the Rings. I'd always thought if I was going to skydive, I wanted to do it somewhere spectacular, not just over like a supermarket car park. The guy gave me the things and I could pull left and right. I wasn't that worried about landing because the ground was coming to us quite slowly, but in the last 100 meters, it just rocketed toward us. I just put my legs up and slid across the grass on my backside. The Canadians had landed too, and they were all running around super excited on a high. I was pretty casual about it, I think because the adrenaline just hadn't stopped pumping for 3 days straight. It was just one thing after another that it felt pretty normal. I think I was just happy to be there to have this once-in-a-lifetime experience. If you can relate in any way, you've missed a flight or you've had your own skydiving experience, I'd love to hear it in the comments. I also write on Substack. There's a link to that in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in. Till next time.